Hi, everyone. Welcome to the DCMN Disability Champions podcast. I'm the executive director and founder of Disability Champions Mentoring Network. And today I'll be co-hosting with Gracie, and the guest will be Karen, a speech pathologist.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. So I call you Susie. We are
Yes,
family.
you do. Yes, you
We're going to
do.
keep it nice and transparent.
Yes.
So I call her Susie. So if you hear Susie, because I'm not used to Karen at all, I think that's her professional name.
Yes, it
And
is.
Susie is Susie. Susie,
Yeah.
Susie. So we're going to
Yeah.
say, on my end is Susie. So if you hear Karen and Susie, same person.
It's the same person. It's interchangeable. Yep, we're using it interchangeably today. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to start off to just thank you so much for being a part of our podcast.
Of course.
It's been a long time coming because I've been wanting to do this with you. I've been wanting to highlight you in this realm. And just thank you for taking the time to do this with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So my first question, I want to know the history. We have to talk about your history.
Of course.
Who are you and why did you become a speech pathologist?
And that's a loaded question. Well, as you said, I am Karen Suzette. That's where the Susie comes from, because people are like Karen Suzette. I am a bilingual speech language pathologist, which means that I treat and assess in both English and in Spanish. And it is deep for me. It is very, very deep for me. It actually started in 1980. My youngest brother, who has passed away, was diagnosed with cerebral palsy shortly after birth. And just growing up with him and going with him to his very, very early appointments. You know, he learned to walk with a physical therapist, occupational therapist. He learned to speak with a speech therapist. So I always knew instinctively that that's what I was going to do. I was going to be some therapy because it looked like so much fun. As a 5-year-old, when he was born, I was 5. So it looked like an amazing time. And I wanted to have, something, that I needed to work with a speech therapist, occupational therapist, or physical therapist for. And so I just knew instinctively that this was something that I wanted to do. At 5, I knew that. And fast forward, my oldest son, who was born when I was in the military, was diagnosed with a speech delay as well. He was diagnosed with a speech delay. And at the time, I was still, I was still on active duty. And I just understood that that was God's way of pulling me back to my purpose, which is what I always knew it was supposed to be. And so when he was diagnosed, I thought, speech, this is what it's going to be. When I went with him to his very first appointment and I saw the speech therapist playing, what it looked like they were playing, I thought, okay, I hear you, God. This is it. This is what I'm supposed to do, speech therapy. And I've not looked back since. Yeah.
And could you give me your entire title? What is your entire title?
Yes. It is, I have a master's in education, which is the M.Ed. The MS is a master's of science. And then the CCC is a clinical competence, certificate of clinical competency, and SLP is speech language pathologist. So I'm ASHA certified, which is our governing board for every speech pathologist and audiologist. ASHA, which is the American Speech and Hearing Association, that is our governing board, and the CCC, which is the Certificate of Clinical Competencies. That is just saying that I have their stamp of approval that I meet all of the criteria in order to practice as a speech pathologist. And my master's in education is in bilingual and multicultural education, which is why I'm able to practice as a bilingual speech pathologist.
You better go ahead. You better go on with your...
Yeah, it looks pretty obnoxious, the letters. When I look at it, it's like, but I worked for them.
You work for it.
You work for all my alphabets, all the alphabets. I worked for.
All the alphabets. That's
All
right.
my alphabets, I've worked for them. Yes.
That's right. That's right. So Chena was going to hit with the early intervention.
Sure.
So my question for you is, what do you tell a parent whose child has been diagnosed with a speech delay?
Yes. My very first, because again, I am appreciative of my walk, right? My experience, because I've been on the other side. I've had a speech pathologist tell me that my child had a delay. So I've had the vantage of sitting on both ends of that conversation. The first thing I tell my families is we have a roadmap. Now we have a roadmap. We can identify where we're going and where we're coming from. And I think that's very important for families to know. I think so often we think of diagnoses, whatever the diagnoses may be, whether it's a speech delay, whether it's, any of the other exceptionalities, they're broad, and I won't try to name all of them, but whatever the diagnosis is, it's simply a roadmap. It is simply an indicator of where we're starting. Now we know what symptoms or what areas that we need to address. And so I'm going to assist you to get there. It can be a difficult time. It is a difficult time for a lot of families to hear any exceptionality that may arise when we as parents have a vision for our children, right? We all, envision what this human's life is going to look like. But we always have to remind ourselves as parents that we're just a vessel. And we are here to support them and to get them to some form of independence, and that is the goal, independence. So my first thing is, let's strap in, because now you are going to be challenged. It's going to require the best of you. It's going to require the best of you. And it's going to require you digging in deep and being very, very creative. It's not going to look like everyone else's everybody else's journey. Parenting is an individual journey, period. But you couple it with an exceptionality. It's okay. I can't look to my left. I can't look to my right. This is my walk. And that's how you begin to champion, for your child, when you see your journey as very individualistic, as opposed to, well, her child is already doing X, Y, and Z. And, so it's my very first, my very first suggestion, recommendation, just for the families is this is your journey, and I am going to be with you as long as you allow me to be with you. And I will give as much as you need me to give. And so, because again, as clinicians, we don't want to overstep boundaries either. We need to be welcomed into the process, because I think we assume, because we're the professionals, that we're going to overstep and take over, their journey, and my journey may be a very short walk. My journey may only last 6 months with the families. My journey may only last 6 weeks, quite frankly. So it really is to create a situation where they feel empowered, because this is their journey and this is their baby, and this is going to be theirs for a very, very long time. Where my role in it, my chapter in their book might just be a paragraph, may just be a sentence in their book. So I'm just empowering them to understand that this is yours. This is yours.
And
I often tell families that I come across that having a child with a disability isn't a bad thing. I know it's often hard for them to be diagnosed with a disability, but having the diagnosis or the name of the disability will be helpful in terms of getting them some kind of help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the roadmap. It's the roadmap, right? So if I'm going from, from Brooklyn to Newburgh, I can get there many different ways, but I know this is my starting point and this is where I'm trying to go. So, if we can look at it that way, this is where we're starting and this is just the starting point. It doesn't have to end here, and the label is important because, again, it gives us some of the characteristics. It gives us some of the things that we'll have to address, that more than likely, because even with the diagnoses, it can look very different between individual to individual. Even with the exact same diagnoses, it's going to look different. So that really just gives us a roadmap as to what can we expect, what have we seen in the past. But a individual may really, really surprise us, even with the same diagnosis as someone else. So it really is just a roadmap. And again, this is your journey, and this is for you to take on and own it, because only by the families, parents, grandparents, whoever the adult in the child's life, because we are speaking early intervention, whoever that is it is an uphill battle because resources are not always readily accessible. And with that being said, with the limited amount of resources, a lot of people just give up, but there's a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of different resources that we don't know about, a lot of families don't know about. And they go one way, they knock on one door, and when nobody opens that door, they figure, okay, nobody's home, let me just sit and go away. But you have to knock on several different doors. There's a lot of different doors because, again, there's a lot of different resources that, we may or may not know about. And it's just a matter of, not giving up on banging on the doors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not giving up on banging on the doors.
I wanted to say regarding that, as a parent who has a visually impaired child, as a parent who has a child on the spectrum, there is a mourning period. I want to let parents know it's a mourning period. There's a period you're going to mourn the thought of what kind of child you were expecting, that be kind to yourself for that point. And I'm sorry, I've lost my voice, so my voice is going to be coming in and out. But I have preserved it to just have this meeting because it's so important. But I wanted to just tell the parents that it's okay to mourn. You have to have the moment. But then, like I said, you got to put your big girl panties on. You got to do your research. You got to talk to the doctors. You got to speak to the therapist that you're going to be involved with, and just go in hard. Sometimes I never went for no. I have always got my questions answered. I always fought to get the right and the best therapist for my children. That's another thing. I feel that people would just take the first therapist that walks through the door. No, your services are no longer needed here. There was the one that gave my son limitations. I was not about that. Like, you're not going to give him limitations.
Absolutely.
I would another therapist. Thank you for your time. So I just wanted to vocalize that when you do find out, always think of almost like going to a restaurant or going to find the right doctor. You go to the best. You go to the one that makes you feel comfortable. No, you don't have to settle for that first one. Like Susie said, the first knock on the door, no one answers, and you're just like, okay, whatever. No, you have to keep going till you get comfortable, till you get the right person, know their credentials. If you need to know, if you want that, go full throttle.
Absolutely.
So that your child could get the best, and you also will be encouraged within the time frame. You will get encouraged by that doctor and that therapist.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to vocalize that.
And that's a very good point. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think oftentimes, because the resources are so limited, oftentimes we feel like we have to take what's available. We have to take, we have to just accept it for what it is, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get someone else, or I don't know when the next person is going to be available. But if you, because right, but it has to be a goodness of fit. It has to be a goodness of fit. And what I mean by that is that if we're not vibing, if the connection is off, the child feels that first and foremost. And I'm not going to take what you say very seriously because I'm not really feeling you like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't trust you enough like that. So
Absolutely.
and the progress stifles or doesn't happen at all because there is this
Friction.
thing, this uncomfortableness between us. And so it is perfectly okay. And as a clinician, as someone who's gone in and out of people's homes, in and out of people's rooms, you know, I've worked in different facilities, in and out of people's classrooms, I've worked in the schools as well. There is just some times that it's just not a good fit. It just doesn't, for whatever reason. And it's not a shot on any clinician's ability to be able to render appropriate services. It's just that the families, for whatever reason, it just isn't a good fit. You know, which is why it's so important, and this is probably just a sidebar, but it's really important to get clinicians from a variety of backgrounds. It's important to keep growing our profession, because when you have a very one-sided view, or that's not your life, that's never been your life, it's hard to see how a family can do and function the way they do, if that's not your experience, which is why I think it's so important in our profession. You know, in the speech world, we've had a lot of conversations about being culturally competent, you know, understanding that the way I grew up isn't the way everyone grew up, and the way I see the world isn't the way anyone else sees the world. And as a clinician, not to go in and enforce my views or even push a narrative that doesn't belong to that group. So it's really, really, really important.
Many different layers.
It's
A
so
lot
layered.
of layers.
It's layered. It's so
gotta
layered.
come in like
Yeah,
almost
it's so
read
layered.
the room
Yeah,
quickly in
yeah,
order to assess and start something.
correct.
Now
And
with mhm.
I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
with Trina, you know, I know you went through a whole bunch of different therapists, as well as your mother, having to make your parents having to make that decision. Did you go through many, or you know, how was that?
I went through many service providers. I absolutely remember my mom telling me this story that because I was really shy when I was younger, a school psychologist came to evaluate me in school, and because I didn't respond to her when she asked me my colors, she kind of just made a recommendation that I should be placed in a classroom with children who were considered like mentally retarded at the time, but it's now known as intellectual disability. So
Oh my God.
we often kind of like question how she could have done things differently, and how my mom had to begin advocating for me to let the Department of Education know, no, I'm capable of knowing my colors. She works with me daily, and my teachers got involved in the conversation as well to like advocate both
Yeah,
on my mom's behalf and me,
In the right
because
hand,
it was just
you
so
know,
different.
so many layers.
yeah, yeah,
That's
there
a lot
is.
of layers where you were maybe not vibing with that evaluator, the person that
Right.
came, maybe didn't like her when the moment you saw, you maybe wasn't feeling the warmth from that person. And now they're gonna just go ahead and diagnose you as something you're completely not. And then
Yeah,
also the parent now is like, no, I need to advocate. That's the one thing I was told by the vision teacher, the first vision teacher who I still keep in touch with. 16 years I've been talking to her. She hasn't been with my son since he was maybe 3 years old. But she's
wow,
ever been in my world. And I've always updated her what's going on, because she was the one that said, listen, you have to be an advocate. You have
absolutely.
to fight for your son, because if you don't, he will be thrown all over the place. And when she said that, I was like, oh, oh
Yeah,
no, you know, I have to be even stronger now. I have to be more wiser now. I have to be more assertive now with my
yeah,
son. You have to. It's like you have no choice as a special needs parent. You know,
absolutely.
have
Yeah,
to You have to do the work. You have to.
Mhm.
So I wanted to just, yeah.
Absolutely. And also, you know, there is a getting to know you period, right? So my tactics have always been, if this is my very first meeting with a baby, because we're going to talk, you know, young children, lady, I don't know you. And that's a very healthy, developmentally, that's healthy for a child to be leery of strangers.
Very
You know,
true.
a child who goes with any stranger, you know, is a child that we worry about, because
Mhm.
they do begin to realize these are my safe people. Mommy and
Mhm.
daddy, these are my safe people. I don't know you. So
Mhm.
it is expected that a child is going to be a little apprehensive of a new adult. Like, so what my strategy has always been, I don't even address the child. I don't even act, you know, this has always worked for me.
Wow.
I act like I don't even see the baby, you know. Hey, how are you? Good. And then I go right to the parent. And then the parent and I get comfortable. When a child sees that, oh, she must be okay. Mommy and daddy are talking to her, so she must be cool. And because they're so used to getting attention, they're going to now ask for my attention. So I don't have to do a whole lot of fighting. So it is, you know, I acknowledge that they're there. Hey, how are you? Oh my goodness, I love your dress. And now I'm done. I'm done with you. Now I'm speaking to your parents, speaking to your
Wow.
mom, I'm speaking to your grandmother, I'm speaking to whoever's there, because then I'm building a rapport. And now little Susie or, you know, little Johnny is there like, wait a minute, where's my attention? And then they'll start bringing me toys. And then I'll slide in, and now I've gotten the buy-in from the child. You know, and oftentimes when families see that and they see that I'm more interested in them, they are, and they, you know, families will give you everything you need to know if you just be quiet and not be a professional. You know what I mean? Sometimes we wear our letters, we wear our alphabets too, you know, and we go in there with, you know, this superhero complex when we're not the professionals. They are the professionals of their children. And I encourage parents to know that they have the PhDs
You
on
have
what's
the
going on with their children.
power.
Yes, I encourage families to I only know what I know. You know about little Susie, you know little Johnny, like
Very
the
well.
back of your hand. I'm just meeting them. So I encourage families to take charge, take control. Of course, let professionals be professionals, because there, you know, there are some strategies and some things that we can learn. But I always say I learn more from my families, I believe, than they learn from me, quite honestly, because it makes me a better clinician for the next family and the next family and the next family. So when I can take these experiences, and going back to what Gracie was saying earlier, you know, I'll never forget, I was a new clinician, a new graduate, and I walked into a situation and I just knew that I knew everything. And this was the last time I did this. This was I was living in Tucson, Arizona, and I was in the schools, and there's a lot of, it's a large, you know, Latinx population, because we're right, you know, South Arizona is really close to the border of the Mexican border. So we have it's a large bilingual population, but there's also a lot of Native Americans in that area as well. And I'll never forget walking in, it was a student who had a Spanish surname. So I made an assumption, completely wrong for making that assumption, that this child was a child that I was going to have to treat, support in Spanish. And so I'm in there and I'm just giving it all I got, right? I'm doing the things, I'm doing all the things. And it was time for an IEP meeting, which is an individual education plan. So every year we have to review that meeting, review the goals. We have to assess that that's still appropriate, and we have to, you know, give new goals, and, you know, just kind of review the process. And so I walk in and I'm like, yeah, little Johnny is not making any eye contact. He's not participating in the discussions. And I'm just like, my nose is all the way up in the air. And dad was so quiet. Dad had his head down. And I'm thinking, oh boy, that's what it is. He gets it from his dad, right? So I am judging. I am judging the whole time. So finally, dad says, Miss Solano. And I said, yes. And he said, well, you know, the first thing, and I had gone on into my whole, and he says, first of all, Ms. Solano, I just want to make a correction to your records. He was like, we don't speak Spanish in the home. So immediately I'm like, he was like, we are Navajo Indians. And I was like, oh, and he said, so Spanish is not, no one in the house speaks Spanish. We don't know Spanish. He said, that was the first thing. And he said, you know, in my culture, because we were working on pragmatics, when someone is speaking to you, look them in their face and you make eye contact, right? And you initiate conversations. This is all of the things that were on his IEP. These are the areas that I was supposed to be addressing. So he says, you know, in my culture, we believe that a wise man thinks 100 words before he utters one. As a sign of respect, our children do not look directly into an adult's face. They bow their heads, they lower themselves, they almost make themselves smaller as a sign of respect.
Wow.
So here I am addressing all of these goals, and that is not culturally in line with what they do at home and the culture as a whole. So I am enforcing these very European, these very American standardized goals for this child. And I don't know, because I came on and I started working with this child. This is my first go round. I don't know that the father or the family knew that these were the goals that were intended to support communication in the schools. So again, we have to be culturally competent when we're writing these things out. We need to make sure that it's in line with what the family's goals are. The family culturally didn't want him looking in adults' faces. You know what I'm saying? They don't want him looking in adult faces.
That's
They
a whole other
didn't
level.
want him, right? They didn't want him, you know, to just be speaking out of turn, because a wise man controls his tongue and thinks 100 words before they utter one. And so
Amazing.
again, this is probably off topic, but
Well,
just
I
how
think
important it is,
Mhm.
right? How important it is for professionals, clinicians, to just be in tune with what the family's desires are. I can't want it more than you want it for your child. You understand? I can't want something that doesn't go in line with what you want for your child. So it's important that it's a collaboration. It has to be collaborative. It does. And again, understanding, and that's education on my part, how this impacts how, again, Trina, you were saying that, you know, she assumed that you didn't know your colors, or there was an assumption made there. So it can impact how the school will see little Johnny, who was Navajo, and Miss Solano was talking to him in Spanish. You know, but it can, if it was any other, if it was in a math situation or in a reading situation, and that is the family's belief system or culture, and the teacher is expecting little Johnny to raise his hand occasionally to demonstrate his knowledge, and little Johnny doesn't because at home it's not expected of him, or we don't want you to speak. You know, we need to find a healthy median there, because again, the schools will make assumptions, and the schools will place limitations, restrictions, put them in programs that they may not need. So I think that communication is vital between the family and, you know, whatever entity we're speaking of. In this case, we're speaking to schools. So it's important that families express their desires and their needs and whatever cultural variations that may be. Yeah, that's really important.
That's what I was about to say, is that the parents, this is so new to me, that just the dynamics on how you went in to speak to the parent first, you know, now you're learning from that experience to come to the parent first.
Absolutely.
And also having the parent vocalize what the dynamics is in the house.
Absolutely.
This is what we do. So then the clinician can come in in excess and actually get more information.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the segue to that is just that, part of it's like guiding the parent. So how do you guide the parent, towards accessing early intervention, as you mentioned earlier, services and beyond?
Sure.
How do you guide them to that? And also the fact of the significant other that, I remember always being asked, how does the father feel?
Yeah.
Dad feel? How's the dad doing? On the sidelines, like set me aside and ask me that question. So, it's a high rate of divorce, within parents
Fortunately.
who have special needs children.
Mhm.
The mother most of the time is the most active.
Mhm.
Most of the time. I'm not gonna say all,
Yeah.
but most of the time they're the most active. Because I know I
Yeah.
was talking to Trina about her dad and how he's so hands-on, so
Mhm.
hands-on, so
Yeah.
wonderful. He's very, very much involved in Trina's life. Before I saw Trina, I saw her dad.
Mhm.
He was right next to her.
Mhm.
He rarely moved away from her side,
That's beautiful.
so and then such a blessing. But
Mhm.
there are times when the significant other, and I've had many conversations with parents, with
Yeah.
mothers, that says, oh my God, he's in such denial. He doesn't want to
Mhm.
accept it, and then the EI services, we want to blend those both together, the significant other, their feelings towards it, and guiding them to get access
Mhm.
to EI services and beyond, just bringing them on to the next steps. How do you do that?
Yeah. And whenever possible, in EI early intervention, typically we're going into the home.
Right.
We're going into the home. I've done EI for a number of years. And it can be a challenge to get both parents together, quite honestly, because someone has to work, right? Because I'm going into the home. So both parents are not typically home unless it's an evening or they've made it their business to be at the same time. If they know, Miss Solano is coming in every Thursday at 2 o'clock. So both of them make sure that they work that out with their jobs, whatever. But it is seldom that both parents are in the same room at the same time, unless like I said, those exceptional, cases where everyone's on board and they are there together. And it's true. And it's true. Unfortunately, it is true. There's a higher divorce rate with families who have exceptional children. Um, and the first thing, I would advocate is truly seeking counsel. Because it is, it often becomes, you believe everything they're saying about him. No, there's nothing wrong with him. And I use that pronoun specifically because it's usually dads about their sons, right?
Mm.
It's usually
Through your years of experience.
statistically, yeah,
Statistically is what?
statistically.
Wow.
It's dads about their sons. And also statistically, there's a higher, it occurs more frequently in boy children, ASD. I'm speaking specifically to autism spectrum disorder. This is not true for any of the other ones, but I'm speaking specifically to autism. There's a higher frequency occurrence in males and boy children, and all the other the varying exceptionalities. There are a variety of them. Cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. It, there's so many, but I'm going to speak to the male, the dad and their male child, because again, this is the child who is going to carry on my legacy. This is my namesake, right? So there is a need to believe that this is just a fluke. He'll grow out of it, you know. With little girls, that's daddy's little girl, regardless. That's his baby girl, and so there's a lot less.
They're more doting too.
They're more doting. they're more doting. What I've also seen is men can be a little harsher with their male children. Oh, he's just lazy. You know, you hear her talking to you, speak, you know, you heard her talk, you know, so there's this thing that I see more with, you know, with men and their boy children. And what I would say to that, and I always say, hold on to one another. Hold on to one another. It's not you against them. It's not your ideas against your husband's or vice versa. You know, hold on to one another and seek counsel where you can, whether it be couples therapy, whether it be, you know, clergyman or, you know, someone that can guide you guys through this process, because it is challenging and we're not always going to agree, you know. You know, as someone who has been married, we don't always agree on anything, even what we're gonna have for dinner. So
Right.
of course, this is going to become something that you are not always going to agree on. You're not. But if you understand that what is best for our child, whether I agree with it or not, let's give it a try.
Absolutely.
And let's just see what happens. But you know, leaning into one another, you know, leaning into one another and understanding that if we put the child first, this is not a battle amongst, this is not against you and I. This is what's best for our child. And I think you know, again, giving it that mourning period that you spoke of, Gracie, you know, feeling all the feelings, because I'm going to resent, you are going to resent me or the world because you were pushed into something and drug along and you never really got a chance to say, oh my God, this really changes everything I thought motherhood, fatherhood would be. You know, I can't throw a baseball with my child. I can't take him to a basketball game. You know, I've had a dad tell me that, like he was a basketball coach, you know, dad was a coach and he wanted to be able to, you know, have his son. He was like, I already know he's going to be tall. Look how tall he is. He's only 2 years old. And yeah, he was a big boy, but, you know, dad mourning the idea that I may never may, and no one says he wouldn't be, but dad was already thinking, because you know he couldn't take his son to the basketball game because it was too loud and he would sit there and scream because it was just too much chaos. And so just mourning that and giving dad the opportunity to feel what he feels, you know, giving mom the opportunity to feel what she feels, that you know, she may never have a grandchild because of structurally or, you know, whatever. So, you know, these things, given the space for all of the things for families to feel what they're going to feel and not be pushed through, you know, like you just get over it. Let's go. We got to go. We got to, you know, which we do have to kind of come on, let's go, but also having a safe space and creating that amongst the couple to be each other's safe space so that they can feel and not offend the other, you know. And as mothers, we always feel like, what did I do wrong? What did I eat? Oh my, you know, I remember I did go into that room. I was using bleach and I was, you know, we go through all of the things that we want to blame ourselves for something, and releasing that, you know, releasing that so that we can get on to the business of being advocates and champions and warriors for our children. Yeah.
Absolutely did do that as well. Two things I was just wondering, like, how did it happen? I actually was going through the phases of the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, at 8 weeks, I got electrocuted. Like, this true story. I got
Right.
electrocuted at 8 weeks. And oh my God, that was the time when the nerves will be informed in that.
Mhm.
And they were like, no, that can't be it. But I was just asking all these
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
And the mourning period for me is like, I didn't take pictures of Wani when he was a baby. I didn't take a lot of pictures. I was like, what's the use? What's the reason to do it? Why should I do it? You know, luckily his father was taking pictures of him. So there's some baby pictures of him, but I
Yeah.
didn't take any. So he was maybe about 2, you know.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's real. And I love that we are all just really discussing our experiences along with
Sure.
the actual situations that happen, because
Yeah.
we want our viewers to know that we're talking, but we're also experienced the things,
Absolutely.
the people that we're interviewing are discussing. We've been through it, and we want you all to know that, you know, whatever you're going through is normal. It's normal.
Mhm.
You
Yeah, it
maybe
is.
don't have a friend who has a child that has special needs.
Mhm.
My whole time, I have friends who were pregnant with me. They were
Mhm.
all There was one friend who her significant other was on drugs. That child was fine. You know,
Mhm.
we all had boys. It was four of us. I was the one who had a special needs child. It was very lonely, very isolating. To this day, I have moments that is very lonely and isolating, and to let you know that it's not, it may be a ongoing thing. It might be forever, these feelings, but know
Mhm.
that the resources are there. The resources are there.
They
So,
are. They are. They are. And they're not always readily accessible,
mhm,
because again, like you said, it's very isolating. And people who know. And what are the chances that they have someone in close proximity that needs the
yeah,
same thing? So, you have to talk. And through these podcasts, and I think this is a beautiful way to reach communities and individuals who do feel like you felt, Gracie, isolated.
absolutely.
Um, and there are resources out there. And I think this is a great way to develop resources and exchange information, because through that exchange is how you learn. Like
Right.
you become you become blind because that's not your world. You
Right.
don't know that that's even a thing
That
until,
part. That
so
part is so,
yeah,
because I looked around, I'm like, I don't know anybody who has a visually impaired child.
right,
And
right,
transparency, I did not go to support groups. I didn't want to go to support groups.
right.
I didn't want to hear everybody's stories. I was not in that mental space to
But
go
think
through.
about how many other people think exactly the same way.
Absolutely. And
So
and,
many
and
people,
Trina,
yeah, yeah.
Trina, I've met throughout the years, like I would see her here and there, but Disability Champions Mentoring Network, they have those resources. And I want to thank you in advance for sending resources for the parents, which is going to be in the actual post. In this post, you guys are going to have a whole bunch of resources to go into and to look into, especially the parents who have babies. We want to get you off on a good start. But Trina has a trough of information. This girl is like, she is just, it's
Wealth
like
of knowledge.
over her head. Yes, it's like Trina
My
resource right
nickname
here.
is Resource Book.
Yes,
That's
that's
right.
you. That's you.
That's
I'll
it.
text her. I'll be texting different hours of the day. I'm like, listen, do you know about this? Do you know? Give me a minute. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
find that out for you. Oh, I have an idea. Just yesterday, she was like, I got an idea for you. I'm like, bring it. Tell me. So also be open
Yeah.
to resources. My thing, I did not go to support groups, but boy, was I close to my therapist. All of them.
Mm.
Because I
Yeah.
had them coming in and out of the house. I have
Sure.
five a day coming in and out of the house for the first 3
A
years
lot.
of his life.
That's a
Okay.
lot.
Say that again. Five, it was physical, it was a special teacher, a vision teacher, a OT, and I said PT, right? OT, PT, it was a vision teacher and a special ed teacher, a special ed.
Mhm.
He didn't get speech because the boy could talk for days.
Better
So
than me.
yeah, it was four. My bad. It was four
Wow.
that will
Wow.
come in and out every day, 5 days a week. 5 days a week. I would have them coming in and out of the house for 3 years.
Wow. He
So
didn't get orientation and mobility?
he didn't get that yet. He didn't get that the first 3 years until he
Okay.
went into school,
Into
and then he
schools,
was
he
getting
started it.
OA. He was
Okay.
getting orientation and mobility because he didn't even have a cane till he's about 3 years old. You
Mm.
know, so for people who don't know, yeah, what I said, my son was visually impaired. So I became there, like I felt, being that I don't want to go get support, I'm gonna go to the professionals. So they became my resources. They
They
became
became your
people
resource.
that I can talk to, I can confide in. So I went to the therapist and the doctor, because that doctor, my pediatrician, was absolutely excellent. I promise you, she's the one that started me off, and my sister as well, Debbie, who was already in the field with special needs children. So she had resources. So I was just going to, you could sometimes go like Susie, like family. You can go to
Yeah.
family. Listen, I have a situation. I need your help. Just don't isolate yourself, because that will cause so many mental, like
Yeah.
depression, anxiety. It can bring in so much negative things where you won't be able
Yeah.
to support yourself as well as your child. And you do not want that. You do not want that, because then you're not going to serve him, the child, and the child is not going to get the need that they need.
Yeah.
They're not going to get it. They're not going to get anything.
Right.
One last thing is that I realized with Wani, because when he was 2 and 3, people will say, oh, okay, he really doesn't speak to the children, he speaks to adults, like he will only be in my space with me, and I always felt like, wow. And he was very introverted, believe it or not. He was an introverted kid. Why? Because
Mhm.
he was feeling everything that I
Your
was feeling.
anxiety.
He felt the weight. He felt the sadness. He felt it
Mm.
all. And that's another thing,
Yeah.
parents, please know that even if you're not vocalizing what you feel, they feel
You feel
what
it.
you feel. They have been in your body. They feel what you feel. So
They're
I
very
was told,
intuitive. Children are incredibly intuitive.
they're
Yeah.
very yeah, and intuitive. And also it's just, I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So I really kind of, at 3 years of age is where everything really changed in my
Mm.
life. Like I got married, and it's like the weight was shifted, the weight was leveled after getting married. And then all of a sudden, the specialists, people who evaluate him, like, oh, he's different. He's
Mm.
open. He's playing
Yeah.
with, he's doing this. And I'm like, they was like,
Mm.
what happened? What happened? What was the change? And I'm like, I don't know. I had no clue. So a coworker told me, you got married, you opened up, you were more open and acceptable for his situation. So it changed the
How he
dynamic
saw himself
and
too.
for himself. So I implore you parents to please, yes, there's a mourning period, and that's great. But again, big girl panties, again, assertiveness, get things going. Open up yourself, open up your heart, accept the child for exactly who they are. And I
Right.
promise they will flourish. They will begin to show you who they are because they're open just the way you are. Oh, I need to write that down. That was good.
And I
Woo!
and I think something, that is the pink elephant in the room is there's a sense of shame. There is a shame in many communities, because again, going back to, a couple of minutes ago when we talked about it as moms, we feel like something that we did, something that, we allowed to happen to us while this child was in vitro, or in utero, excuse me. That we feel like, what did we do? What did we do? And so there is this shame that is also associated with it, that we feel like we have to hide, that we have to not even, hide ourselves, but hide the product of our shame, and this idea that it's a
Okay.
reflection of me. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Real life. This is real life.
No, this is life is
He,
life.
he got a
Life is
Band-Aid,
life. Yeah,
everybody. He got a
life.
Band-Aid.
Yeah,
All
life
right.
is life. Yeah. But it is not in any way a reflection or anything that we should feel ashamed of. Children are beautiful, they're blessings. And I think, what I've always said, to families, like, you got to bring something, when your child walks into a classroom with all of their exceptionality, right? A teacher can't come with her regular schmegular. She can't come regular with this kid. You got to bring the best of yourself. These children challenge teachers, professionals every single day to go in their bag and come up with something new. You know what I mean? Like this is
Trina smiling.
this is really work for, superheroes. You know what I mean? This is superhero work because you can't come regular talking to my kid. You bring in something extra. It
Exactly.
demands that you bring something extra. So, I empower families to see it that way. Like this is, the fact that I get to bring this child into the world, the fact that I get to usher this child through their journey is such a beautiful thing because it the most compassionate human beings on this planet Earth have exceptional family members, the
Going to
most,
church. Yeah, going to church.
like honestly, like there is a compassion, there's a patience, there is a way of seeing things, from a very abstract perspective because you have to, you have to be the best of yourself, on a daily basis. And I encourage families, and again, it's everyone's time is their time,
Right.
and we're gonna move when the spirit says to move.
Yes.
But it is a beautiful ride. It is a beautiful ride when you strap in and you say, let's go, let's get it. Once we get past the shame, the mourning phase, the anxiety related to it, it's beautiful, and so
I say I have been considering myself a special parent for a couple of years now.
yeah,
I am a special person
you
because
have to be.
special. Like God must have said this girl is special, honey. She's special
Got
because
this.
I gave her
Yeah.
2. You know what I'm saying? I feel
Right.
special. I
Yeah,
feel that
yeah,
I am and
yeah.
I told my therapist this yesterday that the LGBTQ plus and special needs people, they they color the world.
Mm,
They make the world so beautiful,
yeah,
and I think they come so special. They come with
absolutely.
their greatness, and they shine. They kind of, put flowers, and they really color the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
again, I believe that the moral of this podcast that we keep coming back to is to, really accept it and know that you're special. Here's Trina, like
absolutely.
I don't even know if Trina know how I feel about her. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's
And
sweet.
how special she is to me.
Yeah,
How I'm grateful that she's in my life. I don't know if you know, Trina, but it's the truth. That smile she got, and how you
yeah.
see her. And it's like, oh, okay, she's special. She comes with so much.
She's
When you
exceptional. She's exceptional. Yeah, she's
Wani
exceptional.
comes in, Wani walks into a room. Oh my God,
I know. No, it's true. It's true. It's true. It's
but
true.
it's what we have poured into them. They
Yeah,
are poured, your parents poured into you, which is why you shine wherever. And that's what I want the parents to leave in this podcast. Pour into your kid because they will just shine into this in ways
absolutely.
that have never even expected to. I know Trina parents didn't, they're like, oh my God, we going where? We gotta go where?
That's
What
right. And their
oh
cups are big enough to be poured and poured and poured and poured into. Their cups, their cups are big enough. And if it runneth over, let it runneth over. Yeah, it's
Trina,
beautiful.
I'm sorry. Well, you was gonna say something, Trina, because I saw you took
Yeah.
your thing.
They call it ability fire because I'm always looking for different ways to do things, and like recently like my mom is always talking about like the journey and everything, and she often tells other parents like never say why them, because we're eventually gonna grow up and make them proud. And so like um it's also impacted by culture because like my
Yes.
parents are from the Caribbean, so
Yeah,
Mm,
we
like
all from the Caribbean, all
yeah,
3. Yes.
yeah.
so when they were first like raising me, no one really knew that I had a disability because they couldn't really tell.
Right.
Because if I wasn't in my wheelchair, they can't really sometimes that I didn't have the ability to walk. So like you would hear some people ask what happened to me. So like
Mm,
my parents would explain to them, but
Yeah.
back in their culture, it's like a stigma and they view it as like a
absolutely.
sense of curse.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Same.
and they don't have access to like services and support. So oftentimes when we talk to other families who may have children with disabilities or may not know, we often share with them
Yeah.
awareness and ideas.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
important. Yeah, it is vital to the existence of many that they understand that they're not alone. I don't have to say this to this group, but it can be isolating. It can be isolating to the family who doesn't get invited to birthday parties. How sad is that, where people think that your child will create a spectacle, or that they will feel like the child can't participate in events because it's a jumping castle, or if
Mhm.
it's at a bowling alley, and there's noise sensitivity, or how difficult must that be for families to feel that I am not a typical parent because I can't participate in these events with my child, or that someone doesn't want them there anyway. So, I really am encouraging families to expose their children, because how do you get used to something that you get shielded from? So if the family loves bowling, take little Johnny bowling, take little Susie
Oh,
bowling.
yep.
If it's a family thing, do not change your family and what you guys enjoy doing, because again, there's more resentment to be built there. There's more depression and anxiety to be built
Yeah,
when you let go of the things you enjoy doing because you feel like your child can't. But how do they get used to it if they're not exposed to it? you
absolutely.
know so if this is a family thing, take baby Johnny, take baby Susie along when they're tiny, because they'll get used to it. We all will. We adapt. Oh, yeah.
Teddy.
Yes.
Yes,
So we
and
adapt. We
that was
adapt.
another thing
Humans are
too.
adaptable. Yeah.
I know a couple of parents that don't take their kids out. They don't take them out. They keep them at home. Sometimes they take the other children and not the special needs child. Wani had a terrible time going to parties. He hated it. The music was unexpected, so he would cover his ears for like the good hour, maybe being at a
Yeah.
party. And it was so hard. We would take him outside, bring him back in, take him outside, bring him back in. And
Yeah.
then he close he cover his ears, and I had to like, look, it's okay, it's okay. But listen, you're gonna stay. You gotta get used to this. As time went by, he would be like, "Where's the DJ? I have a song request." He would come in and
Yeah.
ask the DJ. Sometimes he'll take the mic. So exposure is important, even though, because
Absolutely.
most of the time it's the parent that gets embarrassed. It's the parent that feels
Yes.
feelings.
That's a
The
us
child
thing. It's
doesn't.
not a their thing.
It's
Yeah.
not about them. It's about the parent and how they feel, how people are going to be staring, how people are
Right.
going to be coming over and feeling uncomfortable around. I, at a point, did not give a damn.
Yeah.
He has this cane, sway that cane, sway it, Poppy, sway
Yeah.
that. We Disney World, sway that cane. That's what I was doing. Because at a
Yeah.
point, you know, it's my world, it's my experiences in my life. So, Trina, your
And
next. Mhm.
yeah. And just one last thought to that is that, when do they adapt if they're not exposed? How
Exactly.
do they navigate this world? Because that's what eventually is going to happen. As parents, we can only take them so far, and then our life is ours and theirs is theirs. So how do we
Right.
prepare them to the best of our ability while we can, you
That
know,
part.
because oftentimes families, you know, out of love, of course, and I don't see it as anything other than, but we want to overcompensate, we want to over coddle. And so they become dependent on their adult. And what happens? You know, I've worked in facilities, you know, where there's a 28-year-old, a 32-year-old that has to now go into a nursing home forever because they never learned how to do XYZ. They were completely dependent, and now mom is passed on and gone on to her glory, and he can't live by himself. She can't live by herself. So now what? They don't have any family that will take over because it's, you know, so, you know, we have to prepare for our untimely, you know, passing or whatever, but we got to get these babies ready because they're not always going to be babies. These babies grow up to be adults.
Blink when Wani turned 16.
Yeah.
And Trina, you know, Trina was just telling me, I think last month, about a party you went to and how it wasn't accessible for you. You went to the party, but they had to make moves for you to be able to get in to the party.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me, it was actually my best friend's birthday, and she used a wheelchair as well. So, um, her family had to like lift me and her down the stairs because the system that they probably have for us to use probably wasn't working that day, or they probably don't have a way to access that side of the location. So it was pretty tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's another whole issue, you know, ID, you know, I mean, like ADA, like Americans with Disability Act, like there needs to be things, you know, that again, because we walk, right? Those are things that I'm like, oh yeah, how would someone in a wheelchair? Like Gracie and I were having this conversation where we grew up, the area in Brooklyn where we grew up, like getting on the train, getting on that Rockaway Ave to take the 3 train.
We all from Brownsville. She's from Brownsville.
Okay, well then you know.
Rockaway Avenue, she know Junior Street.
So you get on the Juniors or get off at Rockaway Ave, like
elevators.
If you think about it now, I remember when my mom, you know, we had to take my little brother up in his wheelchair. You know, I'm on the back of the wheelchair, my sister or my mom is in the front of the wheelchair, and we're getting him up all those Rockaway Avenue, you know, stairs, and they're steep, you know, steep. But when you don't have a choice, and that's just getting there, and then you go up to the platform, there's another couple of stairs we got to go up. So, you know, we don't think about that when that's not your world. You know what I mean? But, you know, ADA, you know, Americans with Disability Act is there because these things should not happen. You should have access. We should all have access to public facilities and public venues. And so, yeah.
It's interesting as you mentioned that because my house that we currently live in now, so we probably moved here when I was like 4 or 5, but doctors had said that if I don't walk by the age of 9, that I probably wouldn't walk. So like my parents had hoped that I would still have some ability to walk. So the home that we currently have stairs, and so I was often carried up and down stairs to enter my home. And it wasn't until I was like 13 or 14 that we got access to OPWDD services, which is Office for People with Developmental Disability Services. And we learned then that they had services to help with home modifications. And we were able to get a ramp and a stair glide and a stair glide as well. We got to be able to carry me up and down the stairs in my home, and I got a ramp on the outside of my home so that I can be able to bring my wheelchair in and out, because before we have like 4 steps to go down. So in the mornings, my mom would have to like tilt the chair up and down so that I can get on the school bus because like my
Yeah.
dad had to go to work.
And then God forbid the snow with the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but before that, my dad
Wow.
built a ramp because he's like into construction and those things. So he built like a wooden ramp so
Mhm.
that I can be able to use my power chair to go to and from school. But it wasn't like ADA safe.
Right.
So like when it
Yeah.
snows,
Mm.
it would become like slippery, and so my mom
Whoa,
would have to like hold in front of me as it's like skidding.
my
Oh my
God.
God.
And
Yeah.
I
so
didn't
yeah,
even know about that accessibility that, you have to be mindful of how those things are built. And
Absolutely.
oh,
Yeah. And and you just, even that just blew my mind.
yeah, me
Even that
too.
blew my mind because it's like, oh yeah. Like you don't think about, you're buying a home or you're renting a home, and then you realize that that is a trap to some
Right.
extent.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Just because all members of our family can't access the same things. So,
Mhm.
it's just a lot to consider. It's a lot to think of. And I think, you know, the world that this is not their reality, that they don't have to think about it, they often don't. And
They
it's
don't.
not until, you find a loved one, or, you have these conversations where you're like, oh yeah, yeah. My mom is currently, she's doing, great now, but, I think of wanting to bring her to my home. My home has so many stairs. And I'm like, well, I would love to have her here. There's a lot of stairs in my home. Lots. It's like 5 levels. And so it's like, oh, so
Mhm.
it limits her. Everything, you don't think about it until you find yourself in a position where you're like, now how am I going to get this person to come in and visit? Like if I wanted to have you visit, Trina, it's like, my home
Mhm.
is not ADA. Like,
Yeah.
you don't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
and that also goes back to the isolation part because
Yes.
um yeah, like
Yeah.
people often like they would invite us places, but we have to think um like how many stairs do they got?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so your next, it's your go, Trina.
So my next question is, what is your outlook on transition, especially in schools?
Oh, and I think I spoke to this earlier on. Soon as a family receives the diagnoses, I begin to talk about transitions. And I spoke briefly in regard to that because yes, this is a beautiful, beautiful baby. Um, but in 16 years, it's gonna be a whole adult. In 17 years, it's gonna be a whole adult. And so from the onset, from the beginning, when the diagnosis is identified, all right, let's go. We're preparing for this child to be an independent adult. Everything we do from this point forward is moving in the direction of eventually you having to do less. So from the onset, this has always been, the way I've looked at it is let's get, because we talk about the mourning phase. Families are anticipating that they'll go off to college or that they'll get married. And not to say that none of these things will happen, because all of these things can happen still. But oftentimes parents get in their way and it's like, well, now I'm committed to doing everything for this child. Well, why? The idea is that they do as much as they can for themselves and you fill in the blanks. Because where we think we're doing something out of love and commitment and everything else can actually be more detrimental and more crippling. Because if I don't ever teach you how to do something, then you're always depending on me to do it for you. As opposed to, no, let me teach you how to do it. It may not look as smooth and as pretty and as whatever as I would like it to, or as the world thinks it's supposed to look like. But if you can be independent, then that makes both of our lives richer. So from the onset of the diagnoses, okay, let's do it. And most parents, oh, he can't do that. Well, have you tried it? Have you given him opportunity? No, we just figured that let's try it. Let's try, because eventually, Mom, you'll have to go back to work. And I put it this way. Eventually, you'll have to go back to work, or Dad will have to go back to work, or he'll be in school, and you won't be able to do it for him in school. And the classrooms are big, and we don't know if he's going to be able to get his needs met or someone will meet them. We want him or her to do as much as they can independently, because we won't always be around. So that's something that I begin to talk to, and every parent, regardless of if this is a neurotypical parent or if this is a parent with exceptional needs or a child with exceptional needs, our goal as parents is to create independence in our children, because I don't want you around here all the time. I want you to go on about your business. I do. And that's true for all parents. That's true for all parents. We want every human to have dignity of being able to say, no, I got this. I can do this for myself. And it's just about that. So very early on, that is a conversation I have from the beginning. My very first meeting is already anticipating this 18-year-old. Yes, he's a beautiful 9-month-old, but he's going to be 18 before you blink. So let's prepare for that. Let's prepare so that, he can be as independent as we know he can be, or just so that he can meet his basic needs without having to lay in his or own poop, or starve before somebody can grab him his cup, or, whatever that looks like. We want that, because every parent wants that. So that's a conversation that's had very early on. Yeah.
That's great. I have another question I wanted to ask.
Sure.
How do you encourage advocacy skills as they get older,
Yeah.
or even as they're younger? Because I want advocacy skills to be taught to all kids.
Sure. Self-advocacy, or for families to advocate, or either one.
Or mostly some advocacy. How do you encourage the students that you work with to have communication skills and be able to speak up for themselves?
Yeah, my technique is a little unorthodox, and I say unorthodox because I think babies are advocating for themselves in the crib. When they scream and yell, that's their way of communicating. Somebody come get me, I'm wet. Somebody come get me, I'm hungry. Somebody come get me, I got gas. So babies advocate for themselves from the onset. That's what we do. That is a basic self-preservation. I mean, that's what it is. Babies communicate with us early. If they're uncomfortable, it's not words, but it's clear communication. If you hear a baby hollering from the crib, you go pick it up, because this baby needs something. Now it's my job to figure it out, right? And they graduate into their ability, when they have words, to say, I want to eat, I dirty, whatever, however they communicate that. They go from yelling and hollering, where we have to figure it out, to them advocating for themselves. So I'm hungry is self-advocation. Oh, you want something to eat, right? Or, which is sign, please feed me, I'm hungry. So that is advocacy. They're advocating for themselves. Even when they are at the word, when they're kicking and screaming, again, this is the unorthodox part. Oh, I see you are upset. You are trying to tell me something. You are really upset. And I hear you, and I see that you are very, very angry. How can I help? Even if they cannot respond, but if you're yelling and you're throwing and clearly you're not happy. right? So I can give them that. I can honor that and respect and acknowledge that you are not happy. And in doing that, I'm giving them the word and they're like, yeah, I'm not happy. Well, how can I help? Right? How can I help? Do you want, and then, you know, the older they get, depending on the limitation of their verbal output, you know, if we're not using sign, if we're not using any assistive communication device, if we're not using a voice output device or something where they can express themselves clearly,
Second,
then
hold on. That's the
yes.
next question, was the ASL and the devices. That was
Okay.
the
Yeah.
segue. Is how to, you know, ASL devices, especially for
Mhm.
baby ASL.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of parents, I questioned it too with Zaire,
Mhm. Yeah.
his verbal, his lack of being verbal.
Sure.
Uh, is it useful? You know, is it worth it? Should
Sure.
they do it? Parents, listen.
My opinion and ASHA, which is again the American Speech and Hearing Association, it is our position that it is incredibly helpful because it is a second language. It is a second language. And again, we render an individual incapable of communicating if we don't give them a tool in which to communicate. So whether it is through sign language, which is ASL, American Sign Language, whether it's through a communication device with voice output, whether it's a picture exchange system, whether it's pointing, whatever it is, anytime that you are giving an individual access to anything that aids in their ability to communicate, they're advocating for themselves. It increases their ability to to advocate for themselves. So if I have nothing and you've taught me nothing and I just sit and stare, how do I access my world? How do I socialize? How do I say, this is whack? I'm trying to get up. Somebody come and get me. Right? So screaming, kicking, hollering, that's not always functional because that can be looked at as a behavior. Because when you kick, scream, the way the world is today, we're all running in different directions.
ADHD.
Nobody's going to make the time to figure out what it is you need. But if you scream, hey, I need to get up. My back is killing me. I want to get up. Or if you push it into your device and your device says it, oh, you need something. You've just advocated for yourself. So it is something that we should be doing and striving for. You know, a small child, you know, a beautiful human in my life told me that their daughter had to advocate for herself because she went in on her daughter. Her daughter was like, well, Mom, you never really gave me a chance to tell you what it was. So another parent could have been like, that's very disrespectful. But this beautiful human told her child, well, you're right. I apologize. And we have to encourage whatever it looks like, however it looks like, you know, not get too fixated on the idea that you're being disrespectful or it's inappropriate or this yelling is not what I need it to look like. But as long as they're communicating a want or need, you know what? I love the way you told me that you needed something. Next time, you know, we can do it this way. But I love that you did that for yourself because it's important that I know what you need. You know, there's a way to kind of curve it, to form it, you know, and so that it looks more socially acceptable, if that's our concern. But I think self-advocacy can look a lot of different ways. And we tend to look at it when it doesn't look like we expect it to look like. Oftentimes we see it as, oh my, did you see it? You know, did you see their child? Or, you know, oh my goodness. Or that was disrespectful. You know, a lot of people get into that, but you're telling me something. And I'm glad you told me something because you're protecting yourself, you're defending yourself, you're giving me what you need so that I can help you access it. So that's why I said it's a little unorthodox because I've had kids curse at me. Oh, that's a big word. Where you getting that big old multi syllabic word from? Wow, that was four. You know, so just it was a curse word, but you told me you weren't happy. So I appreciate you saying that to me. So, you know, as opposed to getting offended because you cursed at me. No, you just told me you weren't happy with what I was doing. And I appreciate you letting me know that. But next time you can say, Miss Karen, I don't like that. You know, so always encouraging self-advocacy. I don't know if that was the question.
Those the devices. What devices? What
Yes,
device do you
yes. No, I
recommend?
was speaking to the self-advocacy, that part.
Yes.
I was on that part. So the devices, again, I've done it with 9-month-old, 10-month-old. Are you hungry? You want to eat? Eat. Because you could look at a 3-month-old baby, 4-month-old baby and go, and they'll stick their tongue back at you. Babies are imitators. They imitate, they mock. And so if you teach them every time you do this, you hand them something to eat, they realize, oh, that was easy enough. I got exactly what I wanted when I did this, which is the time for eat, more, you know, drink. They will imitate that. And the earlier we send signals to individuals that you give me something and you'll get something back, I promise you, right? Then communication happens. So ASL as a form of early communication with babies, even with neurotypical children, even with children who, you know, neurotypical before they can speak, if we can teach them how to do basic sign language, it has been proven that it eliminates a lot of, you know, tantruming and those kinds of things before they have their own voice. And it does not, you know, oftentimes I think, you know, the belief or the myth is that if they start sign language, then they don't speak. And it's the complete opposite, in fact, because when they learn that communication gains access, if I'm doing this and nobody's watching because mommy has her back to me and she's cooking, Mom, did you say more? Because he realizes that I typically get exactly what I want, but nobody's watching me do this, so now I have to go here. So increases because I've learned that if I do something, I usually get something. Now I'm doing something and I'm in an environment where nobody's seeing me, or now I have to get vocal, right? Because now I understand that. Imagine how quicker, how sooner I would get my needs met if I was using the thing everybody else is using. So it's actually, it actually encourages, just like voice output devices. So an AAC device, right? So one of those devices.
What is that? What is this called? What is AAC?
AAC, augmentative, AAC, augmentative, you would ask me that. Yeah, AAC, augmentative, something communication. Oh, Lord Jesus, you would ask me that. But I'm going to Google it and I'm going to get right back to you.
Okay.
Because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But it's AAC, AAC. But it's, you know, it is using technology. It is using technology to communicate. And now we're all on technology. We're all on technology. And again, families think that, oh, we're going to use, you know, Proloquo. These are different apps that they have. Proloquo to go is one of the most popular ones. It can be downloaded on an iPad. And on the iPad, you hit a few buttons and then it says, I want food. It speaks for you, whatever it is that you want. And it's usually pictures, and you hit those pictures and you know, it verbally speaks for you. Many families have taken issue with those because they feel like, okay, you're crippling them because now they're not going to want to speak. What those devices do, it's about repetition, because they hear it enough, it's modeled for them. I want eat, I want eat, I want to eat, I want eat, I want. They hear it enough, they start to imitate, I want eat, I want. It's like a song. You hear a song long enough, you start singing along to it because it's programming it into you, right? So not only,
so sorry.
I'm sorry.
Augmentative and alternative
communication. That's it. That's it. Yeah. Augmentative and alternative communication. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Boo. But yeah, I mean, so it is not only you know, it accesses or again, it gives individuals access to communication, right? It's not going to tell you exactly what I want, exactly what I need using a device, but it also increases, especially in young children, it increases their likelihood to imitate what they've heard,
Okay.
right? It gives them the access to imitate. So if we put too much focus here, then we're losing what ultimately we want is for individuals to communicate. And there are various ways to communicate. Because if I sat on this podcast today and I was rolling my eyes without saying a word, like, oh, she got a nasty attitude. How many times have we made that assertion? How many times have we made that assumption sitting across from somebody, you know, at a party or sitting across from somebody on the train that is rolling their eyes and grimacing? We've made that person is communicating. They haven't said a word to us, but they've communicated very clearly how they feel, what they're going through. Oh, if I did that, I didn't say a thing, but you'd be like, is your back okay? What's going on with your back? You would say that to me, and it would be
Communication.
I communicated that my back isn't hurt. My back hurts, and I haven't said a thing. But we're constantly communicating, right? We're constantly communicating.
Like parents are feeling, that's one thing too. They long to hear their kids' voices, and they feel so like, when is it going to happen?
Yes.
You know, you've been working with this child for 2-3 weeks. I don't hear a word.
That's
now
right.
You're explaining to them. I don't think that works. You know, what then? What happens then? Do you tell them, look, you need to be patient, you know, or have them understand what you're doing as you're going along?
Absolutely. Every single time. So nothing I do, and that's the thing with, I think that's the beauty of early intervention. Because early intervention, the clinician, the service provider comes into the home. And so now it's moved in. When I started doing early intervention, the clinician would bring I would bring this big bag of toys or activities, and I would sit with the kid and it would be this one-on-one. It has moved completely into coaching. It's the coaching model now. So the coaching model is, I am going to speak to mom. Mom, let me see what you do during mealtime. You know, let's go into the kitchen. Let's go cook. Let's go, if it's playtime, if, you know, whatever the family activity is, I'm jumping into that activity. The clinician, the therapist is jumping into that activity, and they're going to observe how it's, oh, mom, you know what? That was a good opportunity for you to wait, not just give him the juice, wait, you know, have it there so he can see it, and give him an opportunity to initiate something. You know, because as parents, we're anticipating what our child needs. As parents, we anticipate everything. So we're giving, and the kid is like, oh, this is great. I don't have to say nothing. She knows exactly what I want. She knows exactly what I want, so I don't have to say anything. So watching that dynamic, I can say, Mom, you never asked him what he wanted. You never gave him, you have to create opportunities for communication, right? So pause and ask, do you want milk or do you want juice? Because now you've given him new vocabulary words that he may have not known. You've given him milk, or juice, right? So he may not know. He might say, oh, I like what's in that bottle right there with the white stuff. Oh, oh, you want milk, milk. And then you can do the sign like Gracie's doing. And you're repeating milk over and over again. So now, oh, that's what that is. Oh, is that what that's called? That's milk. Oh, that's juice. Oh, okay. Because now I've given them the visual representation. I've given the word for milk. You know, so again, that's the coaching. So mom, try to give him a choice of two. Because now you're bombarding him with language, you're bombarding him with vocabulary. And now I can see, oh, you really never give him a chance to make simple requests. Let's start waiting. Let's pause and give him. So now I can see what's happening, and then I can coach the parent. So you're always going to know the rationale, why it is we do what we do, because I'm telling you why and I'm showing you why. And every clinician, occupational therapist, physical therapist who does EI is specifically so that If I'm only coming in 1 hour a week, how many hours are in a week? Too many for my math brain to do. A lot, way more than one, right? So if I'm only there for one, am I going to assume that nothing is happening until I get back for 1 hour next week? So if I'm telling you what I'm doing and I'm giving you assignments, homework, okay, for this week, this is what I need you to be working on. Work on giving him choices between two things. Work on pausing and repetition, repeating things over and over again. Work on this, that, and the third, whatever it is that the need is. I come back next week, I should see a difference. I should see a difference in what you're doing, because it changes instinctively what you know to do. Because if this is all I've ever done, this is what I'm gonna do. Somebody brings it to my attention and I want my child to speak, then I need to shut it up and give him a chance to ask for what he needs, ask for what she needs, right? So you'll always know why it is we're doing what we do. If you have a good therapist, and if you don't, you say, I'm sorry, what are we doing? What is the purpose? Why would we do it this way and not the way I've been doing it? Oh, because the way you're doing it, he's never going to say a word because he knows mom got it. Right? So AAC devices, I'm sorry, which are augmentative and alternative communication devices, right? And those can be those can be electronic, and those can be picture exchanges, pointing, right? Pointing to something is an alternative communication. Sign language is alternative communication.
Love it. Okay. And oh my God, this has been so wonderful. And Trina has like one more question. I think you're going to take the last question.
I just wanted to add to what you were saying in terms of communication devices, that I think like iPads or laptops or even a part of communication devices, because since I was really shy when I was younger, and I never really spoke much to anyone, that could have probably been because they didn't know how to provide, like you were saying, a safe space for communication. I only spoke to those who I felt comfortable with, or those who I guess warmed up to me eventually. And
you were very selective, huh? You was like, no, not today.
Yeah, my mom would tell like people who work with me that if I smiled at them, that means that I'm okay with them.
Yeah. And if you didn't smile,
like,
she still didn't get to know you yet.
I don't know you like that. I don't even. You don't know my name. I don't know you like that.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, I had an occupational therapist that I wasn't really happy with, and I didn't feel like he was doing the right services to support me. So because like my mom always say, like, respect your elders, I went back and told my mom the situation, and my mom like said, okay, we're gonna have meetings with the occupational therapist, but on the other side, I was able to put together letters and send it to like his supervisor or things like that, and I would send it to them either in the mail. And
you a snitch? You a snitch?
But I think it was really good to like see the impact of communication, because oftentimes people are like, oh, you can speak, why don't you speak? But it was just easier for me to communicate through writing or sending an email. And when I send the email, he was the supervisor thought it was my mom writing the email. So when she went to sit down with him and have a meeting, she was like, it's not me, it's Ketrina sending you the email. And he's like,
she's self-advocate. She's a self-advocator.
he was so surprised because he said it was so articulately written and I guess he couldn't see that side of me because communication
She
out
didn't
loud
say a
wasn't.
word. She didn't say nothing to me. Now she writing a whole email about.
So I even got him to attend all of my IEP meetings throughout high school as the
Wow.
supervisor.
Oh, Trina.
Good
See,
for
that's what I'm
you.
talking about with Trina.
Good for
See,
you. No. And
the stories and the situations she's been through. You know, this is why this podcast to me is like everything, because I just want, like, there's so much information to share. And I didn't have this. I didn't have none of this, you know, where
Yeah.
there's transparency and there's information as well as stories, like situations that we went through. This one therapist
Yeah.
with tying Wani's shoes, I will never forget her. She was like, "Oh, does he tie?" She was 6 years old. Does he tie his shoes? Yeah. No. Has he ever tried? No. Okay.
Mhm.
So I gotta put on pajama pants as I'm talking. Okay. Yeah, this way. So that's okay.
This podcast is real. Go ahead, put the
It's
pajamas
real.
on.
It's real life. So she says she does a hand over hand method with him behind him. She puts him in front, hand over hand, and he never even, you know, touched laces or ever done any of that. And so she was like, "Oh man," she said, "He's going to take him a while to learn this. It's going to take about 6 months to learn this." I said, "Or not." I said, "Give me a minute. Let me see." So I sat down with him. I did a hand over hand. I taught him like 3 times, hand over hand. This is how you. This is the first loop. This is how you do it. Put it
And you're
right.
talking him through it.
I'm
You're
talking.
talking.
I'm talking over it. I'm like, okay, you're gonna put it right through this
Yeah.
hoop, and then you're gonna stretch it, and then that's how you do your first tie. You wanna try it? You know. So I'm talking. I'm right by his ear, talking, and he went. He put it through, and he did the tie. And I looked at her. And she was like, "Oh my God, you are such a great parent." Like, I said, "No, you sat here and told him. You gave him a timeline,
And you
capability.
limited him. And
You're a
because,
therapist."
yeah,
You know,
she put
I
that
was
in
like,
his head that he wasn't going to be able to do it.
he
Yeah.
wasn't gonna do it, and he did it. I said, "Good job." I said, "Now you're gonna come and tell me that you're giving him 6 months and stuff." Oh no, it's just no, your services are no longer needed here.
Bye.
Bye. I said, "No, you gave him
Good for
limitations.
you.
You don't
Good
do
for
that."
you.
You know, and parents, please,
Good for you.
if you see some BS from some therapists, 'cause some of them, they doing it
Yeah.
for the child, some of them doing
Yeah.
it for love, some are doing it passionately, but there are some who's just doing it for the check. And sometimes they just know the parent may not be so involved. Let me just do whatever and take my time and
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to sit there, you have to, because I could have been in a room. I could have been next door. I could have been in another room while all of that is happening. And
And you
my
should never.
and
You should never.
okay, that's
And
good
if
to
a
know.
clinician, no. And if a clinician walks in and there's no parent to the left or to the right or an adult watching, therapy should cease. And that's a liability. It's a liability for the
Never knew that.
clinician.
Never
Yeah.
heard of that.
Yes.
Never heard of it. Como I never
Because again,
left the room. It wasn't
right.
something that needed to be told to me.
Parents, I
Parents
need y'all to
sometimes they
know.
feel, yeah, it's time to cook.
Go
Go
No.
clean. Let them know.
And
I never knew that.
No. As a clinician, if a parent's not there, I stop.
Okay.
Mom, Dad, you need to be in the room. Because again, I have a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 1-year-old, 9-month-old who cannot communicate. So God forbid they come back and be like, that bump wasn't on his head before. What did you do to my baby? Now I'm liable.
Okay.
Because now this baby can't say, no, mommy, I fell and I did this to myself. You know what I'm saying? So I will not work with a child if there's not an adult gazing me in my eyeballs and vice versa. And if you got to go do something, take your baby with you. I'll be
Okay.
there when you come back.
Parents, please listen to that, because
Yeah.
I did not, because I was
Yeah.
like glued. I was always on the sideline watching.
You have to be. You have to, because
I
how
didn't do
do
that.
you get coached? Because again, remember I said early intervention now is coaching model. So
Absolutely.
now I'm coaching you in your parenting. Oh, you know what? Let's try this. I'm gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna do it with him. All right, mom. Now next time he asks for it, let me see how you would do it. You know, that's coaching. I can't coach you if you're not in the room.
I was already, so I can't.
Yeah, no.
My experience. I was always ready. I was already
Yeah.
Indian style, waiting for the chief,
That's
waiting for the therapist to walk in. You know what I'm saying?
that's ideal.
Indian style with
Yeah.
waiting. So I yeah, there was times that okay, walk out like my relationship between me and my ABA with
Yeah.
Zaire. I promise you, she was in one room. I would check in, but
Yeah.
I was doing stuff. I was cooking. I would come back, but I was cooking. I would make stuff and come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there were moments that but it was after the confidence was there. After, I mean, does that
Of course.
there? Okay, because I had huge confidence with her. We were together already for like a year, you know, so I could just never left the house. But
no, sure,
you know, would be right a wall over, cooking or whatever, coming back, asking if everything's okay, coming back and forth. But I rarely, with Zaire, I rarely like sat around to watch what she was doing at times. In the beginning,
of course.
yes, but as time went by, I guess I got lax. I got real relaxed.
Yeah.
I was like, she got it. You know,
And the way the world is today, and just again, you know, as a parent, don't want to ever get that comfortable in trust because
no, it's true.
You know, people are people, people will have a bad day, or you know, and I never want to put anybody in a position where their license is going to be in question, or I can jeopardize someone's safety. Because again, this is your baby. I'm coming into your home. I am a guest in your home. And I'm here to perform a service in your home. And this is to support your family. So I need family to support. I can't support you if you're not here.
Very
so
good.
it is incredibly important for just to be transparent. So you see everything I'm doing with your baby. You know exactly how I'm utilizing my 45 minutes, my hour. You can speak to that. You can see what's working when I do it. I can say, okay, mom, you do it. Why do you think that didn't work for you? You know, we can have these conversations. Let's try it this way. So again, it's important to have family there for multiple reasons. But, you know, one of the things I think about the most is I don't want anybody saying that I came into their home and something broke while I was there, or their baby got injured on my watch. You know what I'm saying? I just so that
I didn't get the memo.
Yeah,
I'm today years old on this. Years old on that.
You have to be in close proximity, because God forbid you hear your baby screaming and crying and you come and there's a big gash and blood all over the place. A therapist is not going to be able to explain to you why she let your baby get hurt on her watch. There's no right answer for that. Yeah, he tripped over his shoe. You got toys all over the place. He tripped over. No, but why did you let him? Then it becomes the therapist's issue. Now she has to defend her position. She has to defend. And then now you have to question, did you push my baby? You know what I mean? You just,
of course. Anything
there's
comes
just
to
too
your
many,
mind.
there's just too many factors and too many variables. Come here. And if you need to go somewhere, take your baby. And I'll be here when y'all get back.
Right.
And we got 20 minutes. You know what I mean? So I that's just me. I don't, or we all go together. You have to go to the kitchen, cook. Come on, little Susie, let's go to the kitchen. And then mommy can pour ingredients, pour in, out. I mean, we can make it can be a group thing.
Right.
And that's another way to pull language out as well. So whatever you got going on, we could do it together. We'll do it together. But you're not leaving me with no, we're going together. Yeah.
Little Susie coming with. Very good. That is so good to know. Wow, so informative. But I'm now the last question. We went around the block, around the corner.
I know.
We did the last question already.
No, you didn't. You didn't ask.
I asked the transition one already.
The last one, the last question.
Oh, what is your joy in being a speech pathologist?
I get to run my mouth. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. My absolute joy is giving families what was given to me. just in being able to, way back when I was 5, having a conversation with my little brother, who is one of my best friends. And I miss him every single day. And this is how I honor him. This is how I keep his name in the universe. He never had children. And so it's, as long as I'm alive and I am breathing, I am always going to honor him through my work. And giving other families what we got. We got a young man, my little brother, who was just a hoot. He was funny. He had an opinion about everything. He used his voice. He used his voice in every sense of the word. He used it to make people laugh. He used it to sing. He used it to advocate for himself. He used his voice.
Dancing.
Yeah. And and I just I honor him in that way. My son, luckily, he's still very quiet, but I think that was part of his personality. It is his personality. But he's in the Navy now. He's going to be 24 years. Words, but brilliant young man. Graduated and from high school and joined the Navy, and he's an artist and he has a very full life. And it was, what was given to me was hearing them. When my son said, mommy, for the first time, it was just this joy. When I heard his very first sentence, I still remember it. This is a star. When he was telling me the shape, this is a star. He said a full sentence. And, so giving that joy to a family, because I understood how much it meant to me, is just everything. It really is just everything. And again, we all deserve a voice, right? And, even when I work with my geriatrics patients, when they want to learn to eat again after a stroke and they want to be able to eat Thanksgiving dinner. I had a lady who said, I want to go home and I don't want to eat baby food for Thanksgiving. And I said, okay, we're going to have what do you want to eat, mama? What we eating? She said, I want a sweet potato pie. She gave me herself. So we're going to practice. And when you go home for Thanksgiving with your daughter, you're going to have Thanksgiving dinner, and it's not going to be pureed. It's not going to be baby food. So just giving people their dignity, giving people a voice. It is my joy. It really is my joy. I don't see it as work. Some days I don't feel like rolling out of bed, but that's just because I don't want to get out of bed. But when I get out of bed and I do what I do, I love it. I do. And it is my gift to the world. And it is the way I honor my little brother, Rodolfo Solano Jr. That's how I honor him.
Woo! Yeah. I mean, I knew that this would give me life. I knew that this podcast was going to give me life.
Really?
So I'm so grateful. I am just so thankful that you took the time, and I hope that the parents have absorbed all the information and have taken it all in and really, use it in their lives with their children. Also, if any questions or comments, please put it on to the post, and we will answer every question. If it's a Susie question, it's a Karen Solano, M.Ed, M.SCC-SLP.
Obnoxious.
If you have a question for her, you can just put Karen is enough.
It's fine.
Karen, and then to the question to her. If you have comments for me, Gracie B. Kane, or you have a comment for Ketrina, Disability Champions Mentoring Network, you can answer. You can actually put the question there or put your comment, and we will reply back. We will. We love what we do here, and we just want to give you information in order to make life easier for you and your family.
Yep, I think it was really amazing. Thank you for sharing your experiences and advocacy tools for families and everyone, and especially being a safe space for everyone, and especially highlighting culture, because oftentimes providers don't do that. So I want to say thank you for sharing, and we look forward to hearing from you next time and being a part of the podcast and Disability Champions in different ways.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And it was my joy. Thank you.
All right.
And I'll be posting information on the next episode as we get more information and details on who would be our next guest on the podcast.
Right. I see the record button still going on, so.
Oh, yeah.